I personally have always known that I have had this gift of being a very empathic person, a very intuitive person, a very psychic person at times. And when I first got into manifestation, particularly law of assumption, when I got really deep into law of assumption and manifestation, I started to completely doubt my intuition, completely doubt my empathic nature, because I was taught there is nothing outside of you. Everything is just you and your assumptions. So I kind of internalized that as like, oh, so my intuition was never real. My intuition was just my assumptions that I had built up, and they only appeared real because I was assuming that, so therefore happened. And sometimes, very often for some of you, that is what's happening. Sometimes you think you are having an intuition about something, and then it happens, and then you're like, oh, my intuition was right, but that wasn't what was happening. You were just assuming it was going to happen, and then it did, but you do also still have this intuition. So the point of this video is no one ever explained to me how to healthfully decipher my intuition from just me making an assumption. And also no one really talked to me about how to use my intuition to help my manifestations. Because again, if you are like me and you are this naturally empathic or intuitive person, it is a really big gift that you have this extra sensitive sixth sense that can pick up on energies that are already happening around you before they're fully materialized in the 3D world. That is a gift. It shouldn't be ignored. You shouldn't just pretend that you don't have it. Like, I'm just gonna deny anything that's not a conscious thought, a conscious assumption. I'm just gonna deny and pretend it's not there. That's not helping you. Your intuition can help you, so we're gonna get clear. Before we dive in deeper to our topic today, I will introduce myself to any of you who maybe don't know me yet. My name is Genevieve and I'm a manifestation coach. On this channel, I try to break things down in ways that maybe you haven't heard before. I try to give you more depth in explaining manifestation and the different things that can come up. I try to also keep things very psychologically healthy, because you do need to keep your mental health clear if you want to manifest well. So I dive into all sorts of topics related to manifestation. If you like my style of coaching, if you want to work with me, you can do that by booking a private call with me. You can do that by getting one of the courses I have listed down below. All the courses, all the links in general are down below. You can also join the membership portion of this channel. I do a group call every month in the platinum tier of the membership portion of the channel. So check all that down below. And if you don't do any of that, that is totally fine. You can check out all of the free content that I offer here on this channel. So make sure that you subscribe and give this video a like if you get a good value out of it. So let's talk about what is your intuition and how does it really play in to your manifestations. In my last video, I actually already touched on the topic of intuition, and it made me realize I did need to make its own kind of freestanding video. So that is what we're doing here today. If you want to hear what I said about intuition in the last video, I will, link it somewhere around here. But whether you watched that video or not, I just want to start by explaining, what is your intuition? As so many of you probably know, it's often referred to as your sixth sense. It's that ability to see and decipher energy that you can't see with your eyes, you can't touch with your other five senses, but up here in your sixth chakra, you have this ability to sense energy moving or see things or tap into things in another realm. That is real information. It's information just like you using your eyes and looking out and seeing different colors and shapes out here. You can look with your sixth sense and see what kinds of colors and shapes are going on in this more invisible or unseen to the naked eye energy. Some people have a naturally really strong sixth sense or intuition. And in this video, I'm not going to get really deep into all the different clairs, like being clairaudient or clairvoyant or whatever. It's just important for you to know that what your intuition is picking up on is information that hasn't quite materialized yet. Or again, information or energy that's just like, it's not really visible, but you just know something. You know something is there. You know something is happening. But here's something that's very, very important when it comes to manifestation that you understand about your intuition. Your intuition is very now based. And by that I mean, just like right now, I can look over at my wall and see that it's a white wall. That's a very now in the moment, like me seeing that now. Your intuition is also seeing things in snapshots of now. Your intuition is picking up on very present moment, present time energy hits or impressions. I say this because the really big mistake that I used to make before I learned of law of assumption, and that I see people still making now, even after they've learned about law of assumption, is mistaking something that you're truly picking up on in your intuition, mistaking it as like a set in stone, like solid thing. Like, oh, I felt it, I just knew it in my intuition, and therefore, yep, that's what's gonna happen. No. Not necessarily. And as a manifester, you have to treat your sixth sense, your intuitive sense, like you do all of your senses that are picking up on 3D feedback. The 3D world is always changing and always changeable. And even if your intuition, your sixth sense, is picking up on a current energy, a current something in the atmosphere, that doesn't mean that what you're picking up on is like a set in stone, like, yep, that's what's going to happen. Because often, usually, obviously in the example I'm giving, it's usually something negative that people are picking up on in their intuition. Not always, but when it comes to manifesting, it's like they'll feel some sort of intuitive sense that seems to be the opposite of what they're manifesting. And then they instantly assume like, well, I just knew it in my intuition, and so therefore it happened. Well, no, two things really happened. You were given a piece of intuitive information. That's one thing that happened. And then the next thing that happened is you took that piece of information and you reaffirmed it. You got that information and then you said, yep, that's for sure what's happening. That's it. Yes. It's like you gave that piece of intuitive information way too much credit. Again, this is in the case of something negative that is unwanted. So your responsibility as a manifester is not to deny your intuition. You're not going to just pretend like, oh no, I didn't feel that, I didn't sense that, I'm just going to pretend that didn't happen because you're so afraid of it. This is also what people do in the 3D. Basically treat your intuition the same way you would treat the 3D, where you're not afraid of the 3D, you're not denying the 3D, you're not like fearfully avoiding the 3D, like, oh no, that's not my reality, I can't look at that. You're not doing that in the 3D. You're also not doing that with your intuition. Instead, if you get an intuitive hit of something, especially something that maybe is not your preference, you are simply going to see it as a piece of interesting information, just like when something happens in the 3D and it's like, okay, I can accept that as a piece of interesting information. Now that I have that information, I can choose where I want to move the energy next. And also what's so interesting about you as you really get more stable in your self-concept. And really, I know you hear self-concept all the time, that phrase self-concept. And what I mean by self-concept is your relationship with yourself. How unshakable are you in yourself, in your belief in yourself, your knowing that you are loved, that you are chosen, that you are prioritized, that you are safe. Your knowing of that no matter what is going on in your reality. That is so key. Your sense of self, your self-concept is not conditionally attached to, oh, I only feel good when good things are happening in the 3D. That's not a good self-concept. So anyway, when you have that good self-concept, that solid self-concept that knows that like, yeah, nothing threatens me. Nothing in this reality threatens me. I am a being of God. I am not of the world. I am in the world, and I know I'm stabilizing even deeper in the energy of I'm loved no matter what. When you really get more stable in that kind of self-concept, your intuition becomes much more naturally clear. You'll actually find that it's almost like your sixth sense starts to open up more, and you start getting more information from the world. You start to pick up on things more deeply about the people around you. You might also just get more impressions about like an energy that might be building momentum in the 3D about something that's going to happen. Your intuition naturally gets more clear when you are not so clouded by all your own fears and doubts and worries about yourself. That kind of fearful self-absorption, like it really does block the intuition. And this is the other thing I was going to say, where a lot of people think they have an intuition about something, but really it's not an intuition. It's just their own buildup of low self-esteem, their own buildup of just like they've got so much fear and doubt within them that again, it just clouds the intuition. So all they see is their own assumptions of like only bad things are going to happen. When you're in a really bad self-concept, especially about particular people, particular things, your intuition about those people, places, and things tends to be really off because your intuition can't be on target when you have such a big energy towards that person, place, or thing that's really insecure and really fearful. It's like all you can see when you look at that person, place, or thing is your own fear reflected back to you. And that's law of assumption right there. Your assumption of fearful, insecure things is what then causes people, places, and things to reflect back to you more insecure fear stuff. But again, as you start to not take your old fear stuff, your old fear, doubt energy so seriously anymore, you just sort of see it pop up occasionally and you're like, I'm not really going to go there, thank you, but I just don't need to go there. When you do that, your intuition becomes naturally more clear, and this is the gift where you can get intuitive information about things that might be building some momentum in the energy, and then you can decide, okay, this thing I'm sensing in my intuition that something here is building momentum. I have a choice. I can either feed into the momentum of what's building because it's like, yeah, I actually like that. I'm going to lean into that and really choose it and say, yep, that is happening for me. Or you can see it as like, okay, that might be happening there, or there might be a hint of an energy happening here that's not what I want to feed into. So I'm just going to acknowledge that it's there. It's not a threat to me, but it's there. And then I'm going to bring my focus back to what I would actually like to experience. Think of it this way. Your intuition has no actual power. Your intuition is a tool. Just like being able to see, it's just a tool that you have. It has your sight, your physical sight, or your physical ability to hear. There's no creation power in those senses. It's just a tool we have. Like, oh, it's a tool that I can hear. It's a tool that I can see. It's a tool that I can touch. Your intuition is just another tool. So we're not going to be fearful of what we sense with our sight, our ears, or our intuition, because to fear what we receive through those senses would be to give it power. And we are learning as manifestors, we get to choose what we give power to no matter what. Even if something in the energy, the unseen energy, is already building a little bit of 3D momentum, and our intuition, our sixth sense, is picking up on that momentum, it's kind of building in the unseen, that doesn't mean that it's gonna happen. That doesn't mean that it has to happen. It only happens in how seriously you take it. So I feel like I should give you an example of what I mean about feeling intuitively the energy of maybe something currently building in the 3D, feeling that or sensing that in your intuition, but being able to just sort of, okay, interesting, and put it to the side and focus on what you need to be focusing on. So because a lot of you are manifesting relationships and or specific people, I'm going to give an SP, specific person, example. So let's say you've been, manifesting your specific person, and you've been very specific, you're doing affirmations, all that good stuff. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, you get this intuition that you feel like your SP is thinking about dating again. Let's say in this example, this is someone that you were dating, you guys broke up, maybe you're in no contact now, and all of a sudden you just get this feeling or this knowing that your specific person is out there in the physical world, maybe thinking about dating again. I'm smiling partly because this is also one of those examples that's like, it might be an intuition you're having, or it might just be your own fear-based resistance conjuring this assumption up. And here's the thing, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if what you are sensing is really a true intuition of something that's currently building momentum in the 3D, or if it's just resistant fear stuff coming up. It doesn't matter. All that matters is once you've got this piece of information, and it could be, again, assumption from the resistance or true intuition you're picking up on. Once you've got it, and you've got that impression of like, oh, I don't know why, but I'm just really sensing today that, my specific person is really thinking about, putting themselves out there again and trying to date again. What we're not going to do when we get that piece of information, again, whether it's from your intuition or the fear-based resistance, what you're not going to do is freak out about it, which is what most of you are very used to doing. And I just laugh because it's just a human thing to do, especially when you're new to manifesting. But you're not going to get that piece of information and then go, oh no, that's really bad. Oh my God, my manifestation isn't working. Oh my gosh, like this is, oh, I hope that's not true. How do I stop that? Oh my gosh, like all of that energy, that kind of reaction to the piece of information that you got there in your head, all of that reacting energy is what's actually feeding into it And therefore, yeah, probably going to cause it to build even more momentum and actually happen because you're reacting so much. You're putting so much focus on it. You're really resistant and therefore engaging with it, because resistance is engagement. So instead, when you have this piece of information come up, whether it's through your intuition or a fear-based resistant thing in you, you're simply going to thank it, acknowledge it, be like, okay, that's an interesting piece of information. Take a moment, especially in this example, take a moment to really appreciate yourself for being so strong and awesome and able to see a piece of information like that and not be so threatened by it, not give so much energy to it. Take a self-concept moment to be like, wow, I'm really so cool that I could even have that thought or that piece of intuition come to me. And it doesn't matter. I can just sort of acknowledge it and be like, okay, whatever. That's an interesting thing that could or could not be building, but it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to thank it for popping up, giving me a little piece of information. And then the important part, bringing your focus back to what is really true for you. And obviously, if you're manifesting a relationship or a specific person, it's back to, I know that everything is good between me and this person. I go back to the knowing that right now, everything is safe there, everything is great, everything is loving, whatever it is that you need to bring your focus back to. In the video that I published right before this one that I've already linked, I give a real world specific example of this happening to me. So I'm not going to retell that story here. I would just go watch that video if you want to understand this more with real examples. But because of the example that I just gave in this video, I do feel like before we go today that it's important to distinguish, give you some tools to help you distinguish between if you're having a real intuitive knowing versus are you just having fear-based thoughts come up trying to pull away your assumptions, trying to take back your assumptions. Because resistant energy can feel very similar to intuition. And I get that it can be difficult to tell the difference. Is this a real intuition I'm having? Or is this just my own old story, that old fearful energy? Is it just trying to sabotage me? So here's a great rule of thumb. Your intuition is usually very unemotional. It's usually much more quiet. It also, to me, in my personal body, it usually feels kind of in my body. Intuition feels more almost integrated, whereas resistance or fear-based assumptions, they tend to be very emotional and they tend to be very heady. They tend to feel more like thoughts, whereas intuition feels more kind of a body knowing. It's almost a quiet knowing of oh, I'm really feeling this. And often too, real intuition is usually giving you sort of more positive feedback or at least neutral feedback. I don't find that true intuition is ever really fear-based. It's just kind of not. And of course there's exceptions to that, but just again, as a rule of thumb, intuition tends to be much more grounded. It comes to you in a much more neutral way. And it's not that reactive, it's probably not your intuition. If it's making you go, if it's making you do that, then it's probably just your old resistant fear-based stuff going on. As I also said before, real intuition is very present moment. It's usually picking up on something it's feeling that's happening right now. Your intuition is not projecting 30 years out into the future. That is, again, just assumption stuff. There's so many people where maybe they go to a psychic or someone and that psychic tells them oh yeah, in 30 years you're going to get in a car crash. Well, that's not really intuition. That's just something a psychic said. And then the person that received that reading probably took on the whole thing about, oh, car crash in 30 years, that's for sure going to happen. It turned into an assumption and then it happened. So that's the difference between an assumption that someone's just holding for years and years, then it happens. It wasn't really their intuition. It was just a deeply held assumption that they took on, and then that caused it to happen. True intuition is never set in stone. It's very based off of whatever is happening in the current energies. It's giving you a snapshot of this is what the current energies are doing right now. And life is like a river. It can always be moved. So if you are getting a piece of information that's oh, the current is doing this right now, again, that's just information so that you can know, okay, well, I'm going to move this way now so that the water can move this way. It's never, intuition is never this like set in stone, like, oh my God, this is for sure going to happen. It's just, it's usually, of course, there's some exceptions, I guess, but it's usually not that way. Okay, I feel like this video has gotten long enough. I was kind of all over the place as I normally am, hopefully in a helpful way, kind of talking about some of the nuances that apply to manifestation and your intuition. The bottom line is I don't want you to deny your intuition as a tool, but I also want you to, again, see your intuition as just a tool. Because if you were like me before I came into Law of Assumption, I took whatever came into my intuition, I immediately just took it for truth. Like, I didn't know that there was a second step where I got to decide if the energy I was feeling was something I wanted to take on or not. Before, I would just like feel an intuitive sense, or again, maybe it wasn't even my intuition, maybe it was actually just my old resistant stuff coming up, but I would feel this sort of thing come up within me. I would assume, oh, yep, that's happening, that's what's happening, and therefore it would happen, but it was all because I didn't know I had a choice in whether I was going to feed in to the feedback I was receiving through my intuition, or was I going to simply acknowledge it, thank it, accept it for whatever it's trying to tell me without being threatened by it, and simply divert my attention back to what I'm really building, back to what I'm really focusing on, back to what I'm really claiming for myself. You don't need to get distracted by intuitive feedback, just like you shouldn't be distracted by any of your senses that are picking up on 3D stuff. Don't get distracted by what you see, hear, none of that. It's all just feedback of old stuff that's already been created, that's gained some momentum, but it's just old stuff. Anything appearing in the 3D is a reflection from something before. You're always acting from the now. You can insert a new energy, a new belief, a new assumption, a new thought into whatever's being thrown at you, no matter if it's coming through your sixth sense or one of your 3D senses. Okay, again, this is good for today. I'm sure the lighting in this video just changed so much because it was light when I was starting to film, then I had to take a break. Now I'm back and it's like dark, so excuse all the weird lighting throughout the filming of this. Half of you aren't even watching anyway because you just listen to it like a podcast, which honestly is perfect. You don't need to be looking at me. Anyway, let me know your thoughts, your questions down in the comments below. Any requests you have for other topics you want me to see me cover in other videos, put all that in the comments below, and I will see you guys in my next video. All right, bye.